up. I do enjoy it. I don't know a lot about it, so I'm not gonna fake. I don't know. I mean, obviously everybody knows Pele, and that's he's a legend in the game. But Beckham's not playing anymore. But that was one of the guys that everybody knew. I was actually talking to my brother-in-law. Does Ronaldinho still play?
He's not going to a club. He still plays, definitely.
He does. Okay,
but he's not.
And he played for Brazil, right?
Yes, yeah.
But now Ronaldo is like the new featured guy in international play, right?
Right, but he plays for Portugal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought he played for Brazil.
No.
But he played for a club. He plays Arsenal, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. And then the guy for Brazil that's the hot guy is Neymar.
Okay.
Neymar, and he also plays for a European team or whatever's.
Now I was looking up a little bit because I didn't want to come into this completely not knowing anything. I know USA's in Group G, if I'm not mistaken, but I didn't look up the groups. Now my big fear, because I know what little I do know of the Cup, but I do watch it a little bit, was the last 2 years USA's just gotten sniped out by Ghana, right? Ghana's the country that's taken us out. Is Ghana in Group G?
You know what? I believe they are not.
Okay.
They're in a separate group.
So we got a chance.
Talking about that, actually, I had a question for you. I know you're half Mexican.
Half Mexican, yeah.
You're half Mexican. When it comes to Mexico and the U.S. playing against each other, do you root for one of them, or do you just kind of like whoever wins?
Oh, no, I definitely root for U.S.
Okay.
I was born here. I was raised here. My cultural heritage tied to Mexico is not that strong. My dad speaks Spanish, but never really spoke it in the house, so my ties to my Mexican culture are not very strong. My dad actually tended to favor more our Native American heritage, and then so that's that side, and then my mom's side is just all Western, Anglo-European. So I will have a small rooting interest for England, but definitely not. I mean, I like to support the home team. Clearly, my Dodgers gear. So USA would definitely be, my team that I would definitely be rooting for Cup this year. Even though I know they've never had a strong, soccer team, and definitely not an international play. But speaking of that, I mean, one of the biggest things that I heard in the sports world was, and there's a big controversy about it, is Landon Donovan not being selected for the USA team. That was last I heard. And then, he went out and played for the Galaxy, I think, and had like 2 goals in a game. Oh, what's the update on him? Is he still not part of the team, or do you know what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. He's still not part of the team. It was a big controversy because, Landon Donovan is one of the U.S. go-getters, he's all about the U.S. But I think that him and their coach conflicted.
Yeah.
And you know what? Landon has a little bit of an attitude, and he feels like he's entitled to the position. So I feel the coach kind of said, hey, you know what? Like, we don't need people that feel entitled to being a part of the World Cup. So, hey, you're cut.
Right.
And I agree with that. I love Landon as a player, but as a person, he sometimes has an attitude that I'm like, hey, you know what?
But I think to be one of the elite athletes, when we talk about, because sports is definitely, there is an entertainment aspect to it, which, you said was part of our topic that we're talking about. And I think as part of the entertainment, especially, I know soccer is definitely a team sport, but there is a lot of individuality, I think, with any sport. There's always superstars because you can't help but see those guys that, that stand out amongst the others. And if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the few, I don't want to say the only, but I know he's one of the few U.S. players that plays on a club team, right? Is that the UEFA league, or what is the Arsenal, the Man U, that club soccer? What is that league?
I know he plays for the MLS.
Right, I know he plays for MLS, but I thought that some club team had picked him up, a European club team had picked him up, or maybe that was a few years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
And he was being borrowed by the MLS anyway, so he's kind of stayed in the US anyways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like I was saying, and I agree with you. There is a confidence that you need to have as a player. Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. But at the same time, there's also got to be humility. And you know what? Like, you got to try just as hard as the other guys in order to own that spot on the team. And I don't think he did that. I think he was just like, hey, I'm in because I'm Landon Donovan, and that's huge. I mean, you play sports, you know, as much as you want your individuality, you know, because you know you want it, you can have that confidence, especially as a man. You just want, hey, I'm gonna go get it, and it's gonna happen. That's important, but at the same time, you gotta be a team player.
Right.
You know, you gotta encourage your teammates to like be just as good as you, or recognize that maybe some of them are better and work with them. And you know, I don't know. I feel like he lacked that completely.
So speaking of teams, who is just again? I don't know much about going on with Cup. I know Brazil is usually a hot team, but who's favored going into Cup this year? I mean, it's in Brazil. That little I do know, but you know, any idea on who's favored, or if not, who's favored? Who do you like going in to the? And we're like 10 days away from starting the tournament or something like that.
Yeah,
10 11 days.
We're 10 days away, man,
Yeah.
and you know what? I'm very excited. Obviously, my favorite is Mexico. I'm not gonna lie. That's. I see Mexico with a very strong presence in their team. They're playing just a lot better. Their coach Miguel Herrera, who was the coach for America, he took America, which is the Mexican league. He took America to 3 championships, like back to back.
Okay.
So Mexico, you know, has a very strong presence. Brazil, they're just a World Cup favorite always.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah,
Every year.
they're really good, and now that it's in Brazil, they have a lot of pressure to actually win the World Cup. They have a really good team, especially with Neymar. Neymar has done some amazing things. So you know, they're definitely a contender for the championship. Everyone's excited about Portugal, because of Ronaldo, like you were mentioning, and then obviously everyone's excited about Spain as well. Spain was the champion the last World Cup.
Last Cup. I don't know why. The last Cup I remember watching, and I think it might have been Brazil, that one. And I think just because of the extreme circumstances, it was when it was being in Japan. So I want to say 2002, 2004. I think it was 2002. That Cup when it was being played in Japan, and I remember watching the final. Me and a bunch of buddies, you know, we got together at some guy's house. I think it was on at like 3 or 4 in the morning, watching the championship game, and you know, we pretty much just kind of pulled it all nighter and started watching the game. But it's definitely epic. I think. You know, when it comes, I know, you know, America is not, I mean, the soccer is not the predominant, or football is not the predominant sport in the United States. And I know you are a big fan of it. I mean, what do you think is the reason there's not that draw? I mean, internationally, worldwide, it's the biggest sport. I mean, there's no arguing that. I mean, in America, you know, we're very self-centered. We think football is the biggest thing, and it's huge here, huge revenues. But when you look at the revenues and everything that the international, that soccer or you know, football brings about, it trumps American football hands down. Am I not mistaken?
Oh, you're right, definitely. You know.
I mean, your thoughts, because and you've played soccer, right? You played growing up.
Yeah, I did.
What your thoughts on why it doesn't catch on here in the United States?
I believe that soccer it's like a chess game. You know, a chess game is if you kind of want to put it in these terms, is boring if you're not understanding how you're moving the pieces.
Right. Okay.
You know, and soccer's the same way. You know, it's a big field, and it takes a long time to make a goal.
Right.
It's not fast paced, and I think the U.S. People in the U.S. Have this conflict with instant gratification, where they just want everything to be super fast.
Right.
Look at every other sport. You know, in football, the scores are high. You know, they're always in the 20s and 30s.
Right.
You know, basketball, they get to 100. You know, soccer, 1, 2.
Right.
You know, it takes forever to score. And even the movement of the ball is kind of not slow paced. You know, it's really fast. But if you look at the outside the box thing, it's kind of slow.
Right.
How you move the ball. You know, when you think of hockey's like really, you know, big here in the U.S. It's a fast sport.
Yeah.
It's super fast. You know, it's on ice, so the puck is moving super fast. Yeah, they don't score as much.
Right.
Kind of like soccer.
Although lately in the playoffs, there's been a lot of really high-scoring games. So, and maybe it's just because of the playoffs that's a little bit more exciting. But yeah.
Yeah, but you know, soccer it's more on the slow-paced type of game, but you have to understand it.
Right.
And then if you know, you also got to think of the fact that here in the U.S., you know, the economy is a little bit better. So kids have a lot of options, where in other countries, it's the only option.
Right.
Soccer is the only option. That's all you play.
You just need a ball. You
You
don't
just
even need a pair of shoes, really. You just need a ball and a field.
Exactly. Oh, that's where I was going. And a field.
Uh-huh.
In order to play football, you need a football field.
Right.
Which is very available here in the U.S.
Right.
Not available in other countries.
Okay.
Baseball, the same thing. You need a field. You need equipment.
Right.
You know, with soccer, I used to play soccer with a basketball. You know, yeah, it would hurt my feet, but that's okay.
Right.
And that's a big part of I think why soccer's not that big here in the U.S. Another reason is marketing.
Okay.
I think because big companies don't know how to make money on soccer,
Okay.
they don't promote it.
Right.
So there's 45 minutes of playtime, 15 minutes of rest, and 45 minutes of playtime again.
Right. And then whatever extra time, or what's the right term for the you know,
Yeah.
extra time?
Extra time,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And where do you put in your commercials?
Right. Good. Really good point. Really
Yeah.
good point. I never thought of that, but yeah, you're absolutely right, because the action is nonstop.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So you can't put in commercials. Then I don't know if you've noticed. I don't know if you've kept up with games or whatnot. They try to put in visual commercials.
Right.
Within the game.
Right.
It's not the same though.
Right.
It's
No,
just-
no, it's not, because that's what those advertisers do. They sell those products. The Super Bowl ads. You know, I mean, how many people? You know, people say especially women, but let's face it. I mean, I think the commercials are pretty dang cool on Super Bowl Sunday
Yeah.
too. But like you said, that seems to be even more of a draw than the game itself. But you're right. I mean, I never thought about that. That's actually I think that's a very valid point. But the same thing too. I think you said you know, about, you know, companies not knowing how to advertise or sponsor teams. And I know, like, the European League is definitely different too. They put the sponsorships on the jerseys.
Right.
And I know NBA is talking about going that route, and there's a lot of purists who are not really about it and stuff like that. But I think that's one of the great things about soccer. That's one of the things I like. I'm not a big fan, but you know, we were talking the other week, and I really got excited about Cup coming up. I just happened to be lounging around a couple Saturday mornings. I usually wake up pretty early. I'm waiting for the kids to get up, and so I'm flipping through, usually trying to find sports on a Saturday or Sunday. And it was one Saturday, and I don't know. I think it was the European League, because I think it was West Ham that was playing. I know it was a big thing between them and Liverpool, and those aren't club teams, right? Those are.
Yeah, they're club teams.
Oh, those are club teams.
Yeah,
Okay, so they were playing on one Saturday, and then the following Saturday it was Atletico was playing, right, for the championship.
Yeah.
So were those the same leagues that were just playing on different weekends, or were they different? Are they different leagues? Because I don't know enough about European.
Yeah, no, there's different leagues in Europe, and
Okay.
they play simultaneous to each other.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of people follow the English league.
Okay.
A lot of people follow the Spaniard league. There's a league in Italy.
Okay.
So, you know, there's a lot of leagues. There's the Brazilian one that's also very popular. You know, it's kind of hard to keep up with so many.
Right. But that was what was really exciting, is because there's not a lot of scoring. And I think, you know, the final scores were, you know, 2-1 or 3-2, or, you know, they're really close scoring games. And because there's not, but there are a lot of close calls. You know, when you get a corner kick, or when you get somebody centering it, and, you know, it's like, oh, then your heart just like stops beating for a second. And that is definitely, you know, I think what attracts us to sports. I mean, there's definitely the competitiveness, I think. You know, not to get, you know, too big on it, but being in a capitalistic country, you know, that, you know, you want to be a winner, you want to be the best. I mean, that's definitely the attitude and the mantra, I think, definitely being in the United States, and I enjoy that competitiveness. I think it's fantastic, and so anything. But again, you know, I can't get into the regular season. I just
Right.
I don't follow it enough. I don't even know when it's, you know, running simultaneous to, you know, basketball or baseball or football season. But I think regardless of what sport you're looking at, anytime the playoffs come around, the quality of play just gets elevated to that quote next level. And I think no matter what sport it is, I mean, even if it's badminton, I'm sure in the playoffs, that level of play just gets elevated and it's just absolutely enthralling to watch. It's really captivating.
Yeah, man, and I think in the playoffs, like you said, in any sport, it's that the players have given it their all. They're beyond tired. Mm-hmm. They're like to the point where it's like I can't keep going, but they still do it anyways.
Right.
And it's like that's the amazing part. I don't know if well, you play baseball, right?
I used to play baseball up until I had the kids. I was playing even like after high school. I was playing Sunday leagues. Yeah.
So the intensity of what it is to want to win.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
absolutely.
Your body is dead sometimes,
right?
And your mind is saying, "No, I don't care." Like,
but even play a pickup basketball or a pickup soccer game. I don't know if you still play. I mean, I can't really compare, but even play a pickup basketball. I mean, you just want to win. I mean, I'll just I admit I'm not a good basketball player. I'm not a very good shooter, but I try to play hard defense because that's where I make up for not being able to shoot the ball very well. But yeah, I mean, I just can't help. I can't, for lack of a better term, I can't half-ass it.
You just gotta give it your all, man.
Because you don't want to be seen as soft. I mean, that's the last thing you want when you're competing.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And actually, you know what? Going back, I did some research right now while we were talking. USA is playing with Ghana. They're in the same group.
No, don't tell me that. I would have rather had you not. I'd rather just lie to me. Let's go back. Just lie to me. Tell me they're not playing. Oh, the bane of our existence for the last 2 cups has been Ghana. How do you lose to the same team? You can't even get out of your own group.
Yeah, man. And you know what? USA actually has a very tough squad. I was looking it up, and they have Ghana, Portugal, and Germany.
Oh, God.
They have a really, really tough squad. So does Mexico, by the way.
I was going to say, they're in the same group as Brazil, right?
Yes.
If you talk about, home favorites, that's a tough group to be in.
Yeah, Mexico has Brazil, Croatia, and Cameroon. Mexico and Croatia have always, Croatia always eliminates Mexico.
No kidding. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Cameroon, they're not expected to do much, but they're not expected to do much, but they've actually kind of stepped up their game. So they're one of those underdog type of teams that we'll see what happens with them. But Mexico, I think their first game is against Croatia, so it's always a big game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then Brazil, Cameroon. That's the first game of the World Cup, I believe.
Okay.
It's Brazil, Cameroon.
Well, what do you think about the choice for Brazil? I mean, definitely, I think with I know it's not a third world country, but one of the things about countries like Brazil is people can't help but note the extremes between the haves and the have-nots. And I know there's a lot of poverty in and around, especially Rio de Janeiro, but that's like one of the huge, draws, with the big Jesus, on the mount. When you first heard that cup was going to be in Brazil, I mean, what were your thoughts? Were you excited, or were you thinking, damn, they're already they're usually the favorites. Why they got to get home field advantage now too?
You know what? When I first heard it was in Brazil, because I've been meaning to go to a World Cup. One year I will go to the World Cup. When I first heard it was in Brazil, I thought, oh man, that's a dangerous place.
Right.
My brother and I were looking this up yesterday, and we're looking up the most dangerous cities in the world. And Brazil came up.
No kidding.
A lot of different cities in Brazil came up a couple times in the top 30. So, those were my first thoughts. Then I started thinking, why are they in the same group as Mexico? That makes no sense, man. I want Mexico to win, and, Brazil has a lot of pressure to win. I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago, Brazil didn't make it, and one of the team members, one of the players was shot to death.
No kidding.
Yeah, because they didn't pass on a game.
Oh wow.
That's how serious they take their soccer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, when you see all the stories about riots and things like that. Another one of the reasons why I think the American sports kind of fails in comparison to the huge draw and the passion of soccer fans, because you do hear about those riots. I mean, who gets that passionate about sport? I mean, people get passionate, but don't want to start a riot or start looting or a fire. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, man. I have a cousin who is who's a big member of the LA riot squad for the for the LA Galaxy.
Okay.
He invited me to a game, and they're doing their chants. And they're getting super intense about it. And I'm like, oh man, this is soccer, yeah.
Right.
And I could imagine how much they do it in Mexico or other countries where soccer is even bigger.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you've, when you watch games, if you pay attention to this, but the whole stadium chants
Right.
for certain things.
Right. You can never make out what they're saying, but they're all in it at the same time. Just chanting the chants or songs or whatever they're doing. Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is that it's the fans that are making up the songs.
Uh-huh.
It's just the fans. Like when you go to a basketball game, when you go to a baseball game, and you hear the whole stadium chanting, it's because the keyboard or the DJ behind the scenes is actually playing the chant, and
Right.
everyone just wants to go along with it.
Right.
It's not a fan thing that they're actually coming up with these lyrics and these things, and it's
Right.
just like the intensity of soccer is it's to another level, man.
Right.
And talking about basketball, what did you think of this whole Donald Sterling?
Oh man, he opened a can of worms there. There's lots of different aspects to this. The guy, his comments were definitely racist. There's no getting around that. I think there's no place for that, not only in athletics, but in anywhere. There's just no room for that attitude or those kind of things to be said. Was he baited into that conversation? Yeah. Was he, I don't know the laws of California where, if it's legal or not to, have a wiretap unless you've got a warrant or something like that. So
There's definitely like laws against defamation, though, right?
right, defamation of character, I think so. But at the same time, the cat's already out of the bag. It's too late. And I think the NBA had no choice but to take a stance on it. They could not afford to be seen as supporting or at least allowing this guy to continue to own this team, because let's face it, the predominant players in the NBA are black. And the predominant fans are probably black as well, because this just, that probably coincides with it. I like basketball. I'm not a big basketball fan, but, hometown, I like the Lakers. I know the Heat and San Antonio are in the finals right now. And, but there's definitely no place for it. And I think I was interested to see if the Clippers or the Warriors or whoever, if they were really going to start boycotting games.
They all threw their shirts down, right? That was like one of the...
Yeah, and they wore their warm-ups inside out. And I thought, that's it's a gesture. I think it definitely shows a sign of unity. But it's... there's no room for any language like that. I don't think in sports or anywhere else. And I think it's definitely probably the best thing that he's going to be selling the team. But I know some people are like, well, is it fair still? The guy's basically turning like a 300 or 400% profit from what he bought the team for. I don't know.
And that's where I was going to go, because I feel it's a little bit unfair towards Donald Sterling. First and foremost, I think it was Magic Johnson that said it. I forgot who said this, but they're not paying attention. The NBA is not paying attention to the reality of what the things are. Somebody did this to him.
Right.
He's made comments like this before.
Right.
And they've done nothing about it.
Right.
So it really seems like he was set up.
Right.
Like, honestly. In regards to his comments, he's an old guy. He was just kind of talking. He had a senior moment, I think.
Right.
Right? Like, he was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Yeah,
I heard they classified him as being mentally incompetent or something like that. I didn't know if it's Alzheimer's. I haven't really caught up on that, but
yeah, he was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it's just like, okay, at what point do we say, hey, you know what? Like, he's just an old guy. Like,
right.
At what point do we stand up and say that? He was an old guy that was set up by whoever, because I'm sure it wasn't the girlfriend. I'm sure maybe she was paid to do that. I have no idea.
I don't know. I think, given, she tied herself to him for obviously financial reasons. Anytime a young girl is attracted to an older guy like that or hangs out with an older guy like that, okay, you could probably play the card of they're looking for a father figure. Maybe they didn't have it right. But, I mean, every situation is different, so I don't want to pretend to know. But at the same time, too, I mean, she had to have known, what was going on. I mean, he just kept throwing money at her. They said, he spent millions on her, bought her cars, bought her house, this and that. And I think, not knowing the whole story, but maybe she was trying to extort him, and that's not fair to him. I agree. But regardless of, what's fair or not, I think, like I said, the NBA had no choice but to act. And I think...
That's what I'm saying. So
Right.
why act now? He's made comments like that before.
I agree.
So what was the difference? What was the...
I think it's society that's changed. I think it's definitely, we've gotten to a point where comments like that, there's just no room for them, anymore. Whereas I think, we've always lived in a racist society. There's no getting around that. And I know that a lot of the racial thoughts that we have as people are, kind of taught to us from older people like Donald Sterling, or maybe not that old, but, people before us. As much as we try to be colorblind, I mean, there's always stereotypes and stuff like that. So I just think people, here's the point I'm trying to get to. The point that actually I was trying to make is that I think where we're at now is everybody now is just all me. That offends me. That those comments, they weren't directed towards me, but they offend me. Even and it wasn't just blacks. He did definitely specify blacks, but I know he was talking about minorities as well. His whole history with his housing developments, how he was singling out minorities and trying to get them evicted, he's basically a slumlord, for lack of a better word, but. Yeah, so I do think that has what's changed. Is I think as a culture in general, we have become a more self-centered. Look at my Facebook, read my tweets. Me. This is what I'm doing. Look at what my life, and I think that's why it's definitely is now, because people are voicing, well, that offends me. I think that's what's changed.
Check out Emix Radio on YouTube, that kind of stuff. Yeah. No, and I get that. I completely understand your point. And I agree, it's a me society, but at the same time, I don't really agree with you when you're saying we should. Well, actually, I don't know if you said this, but I think you said we should be colorblind. I don't think so, man. I think stereotypes are there for a reason. I think stereotypes exist for a reason, and I think we should take those stereotypes, acknowledge that they're there, and change them.
Okay.
If you see not just a black person. I don't want to say a black person, but you see a black person who's dressed thuggish.
Okay.
And you have your wife and kids.
Okay.
And you're walking, and would you cross the street?
Right. The whole Mark Cuban thing. I was gonna get to that too. I think to be honest, if I see someone dressed, quote unquote thuggish, I don't care what color they are. I mean, it could be, quote unquote, the whitest cracker you ever seen in your life, for lack of a better term. And I'm half white too, so I don't care what color your skin is. I mean, maybe even more common if he was Indian, and he looked like a thug. I mean, if I'm walking with my wife and kid, I'm definitely, tightening up a little bit.
Right.
Am I gonna cross the street? I mean, it depends. I mean, if it's the middle of the night, I might, think about crossing the street, but I'm not gonna put myself in that situation. But it's actually happened, when we're going out for a walk with my wife and kids, and this one guy, I've seen him a couple of times, definitely, neck tattoos, pants 3-4 sizes too big. I'm definitely on guard when I walk by him. I don't cross the street on the other side, but I am on guard, and I'm, thinking about, okay, I gotta be prepared to protect myself and my family if I need to. So, so that part, I think, for me, skin color is
right.
colorblind.
And I see what you're saying, and I agree with you. Ghetto is ghetto whether you're black, Mexican, or white.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But once again, I don't think we should ignore the stereotypes because
Right.
they're there for a reason. And I'm not saying indulge in the stereotypes.
Right.
I'm saying identify them
Okay.
and change them.
Right.
The stereotype of black people being ghetto comes from a life of being the whole slavery thing and the whole oppression.
Right.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. The same goes for any other minority that has that ghetto, look to them or whatever. So, if
Right.
I see a Mexican that's all tattooed, I'll be just as scared. Like
Right.
I would get in that defense mode.
Right.
But once again, stereotypes are there for a reason, and if we acknowledge them and we do something about them, then it would change how we see, how we see people.
Right.
Instead of being politically correct, let's just be real.
Right.
And that's what pisses me off in today's society, that everybody wants to be politically correct.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of being politically correct. That's definitely not my forte. I don't. Why be dishonest, or why not just? I mean, there's a difference. I mean, there's a difference between brutally honest and there's definitely, I think, a time and place, to act a certain way. Or, I mean, if you're, a loud and vulgar person, you're not going to act that way if you're in church. If nobody's saying, I'm not saying, don't be a vulgar person, but, you need to be able to, acknowledge a situation that you're in. Going to what you were saying, I guess my question, made me think, you're talking about changing stereotypes. Well, on whose responsibility is it to change these stereotypes? Is it the minorities who represent these stereotypes, or is it, the people outside of that minority who are probably placing those stereotypes on those people?
No, it's definitely the minorities that are part of that stereotype.
Right.
I'm Mexican, and I try my hardest to be a socially responsible person.
Okay.
Because I want people to meet me and say, hey, that's a good, standing Mexican. That's a good person.
Right.
They don't have to call me Mexican. They just call me a human being. But
He's a good guy.
he's good. Yeah. And, if I played to the stereotype and, I dressed all hood and, all gangster and, had the tattoos, I'm responsible for that. I
Right.
made the choice to get tattoos. And if a cop stops me based on tattoos, he's like, hey, I'm not going to complain because I'm the one that made the choice to get the tattoo and cover my,
Right.
look like a gangster.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think it's anybody else's responsibility than, it's the minority itself. But how do you get that out there, How do
Right.
you get that out there? It's hard to get someone to understand that when they're ignorant of the idea itself.
Right.
But
that's part of the issue too. When you talk about ignorance, that could fall back on a lack of education. Well, why is there a lack of education? Because, well, a lot of, let's face it, the predominant culture in this country is white. And that, when you look at the top jobs, in any field you go in, they're predominantly white. If not, I mean, that's why it's a rarity to see a minority. And as much as we want to, try to eradicate racism and get rid of racism, I mean, it's still very prevalent. And because of those stereotypes, whether people don't want to be racist or not, they may, even a successful minority may still be viewed in that light and may not have the chance to advance. So the point of, get back to the point I was saying was that, I think there's definitely a view of, well, the minorities in South Central or downtown LA, they think, oh, well, they're not going to try, they're not going to give an effort, so, the teachers don't really care. And so they're not going to put the effort to educate the kids, to try to eradicate that ignorance, for lack of a better sense. And so I think that may be, unfair. I mean, if people deserve a chance. They deserve a chance to better themselves. But if they're not given the chances and the opportunities, if they're not given, a fair shot, and yes, there are, I think, we were talking earlier, there are definitely people who can rise above. But usually when that is, you've got a good home life. There's definitely that support at home, and not everybody is that fortunate. And when there's not, that's when you fall back into the tattoos, the gang life, the thug life, more in a sense, because I actually, watched a documentary about that, and a lot of these gang members in this documentary were saying the reason they didn't want to be in a gang, they want to get out of the gang life, but there were a lot of reasons why they joined the gang in the first place was because they didn't have a father at home. There's no father figure at home. So let's face it, a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. So there's no choice. They had to go to that gang life to find that, because there's definitely a yearning for that. Even as tough as we want to be,
yearning for family, right?
Right.
Well, there is a choice though. There
is a choice. No, I understand there is a choice.
And that's See, that's why that mentality bothers me, because people are always saying, okay, well, they didn't have a chance. Let's understand them. Let's give them a shot, or let's understand their mentality. That's the typical opinion of people. I've seen so many cases where there's a diamond in the rough,
Right.
where it's like that person had the worst life ever,
Right.
including his family life, and they still made it. And they were that difference. They made that difference.
Right.
My father being one of them. My dad had a horrible, situation in Mexico. His surroundings were full of drugs, and he lived in one of the worst cities, which is Mexico City. One of the worst parts of Mexico City. His parents didn't care for him. He started working at 8 years old. He's a typical example of, okay, he should be a thief, or just a really bad life.
A thug. Right.
My father is, sure, he doesn't have a master's degree or anything, and he works at a bakery, but the life that he has, it's an amazing life.
Right.
He made it.
Right.
And he raised a good family. When I see things like that, it makes me think, well, if he can do it, anybody else can do it.
Right.
And it's that personal choice.
Right.
To hey, I want to be better than this. I want to be better than what society tells me what I should be.
Right.
And that's when I go back to the whole minority mentality. I don't see it. I don't see it, and I don't agree with it. It's like, you have the choice to be a better person, so just be a better person.
Right. I think sometimes it's definitely easier said than done, and I do think it's easier for us to sit here and comment on that. I was very blessed to have my mother and father both in the same home. You've had that same blessing. You had mom and dad both in the same home. I don't want to judge people based on the fact that, okay, you should try to break that stereotype. I don't want to tell what other people what they should do. I would say I don't agree with you harming other people or harming yourself. I think you should find a way. I think you should at least try to make an effort. But again, not being able to comprehend or what it's like to struggle like that. It's such a tough way to go, and I used to definitely have the mentality, and sometimes I still find myself having that mentality, but my wife has definitely opened up my eyes to be less judgmental or less self-righteous, I guess, maybe, for lack of a better term. And I'm not commenting on that towards you at all, but for me, I feel like you know what, I don't know. It's definitely maybe Mark Cuban's comment. It's a slippery slope. It's definitely hard because everybody comes from a different background. You can't say you should be this or you should be that, and that's my take on it. I just think it's very difficult to understand where everybody comes from, and not necessarily the mentality, but the opportunities.
Right. No, and by all means, I get that. The whole. Especially what the church teaches, like, don't judge people. Mm-hmm. This is don't judge people, but you could judge their actions, though.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, once again, I go back to the whole, well, is that really, and I ask this to anybody out there who's a thug.
Right.
Is that really what makes you happy? Is that really what you want to be? I can guarantee that 100% of them will say no. I've talked to people who make money in the easy way, right?
Right.
And they all tell me the same thing. That money does not last.
Right.
It's temporary happiness, and you're stuck in that cycle of just wanting it again and again and again.
Right.
And you get that money through doing bad deeds, but karma, if you want to call it that,
okay,
just takes it away. Mm-hmm. It flies. That happiness is not something that lasts.
Right.
And one thing that some people have told me is and the idea of having to be always fearful for your life, it's not worth it.
Right.
But now they're stuck.
Right.
Because once you get in, you're...
Right, like it was the whole gang life thing. Yeah, we're talking about absolutely. I want to bring it back because I know we set our topic for tonight. We're talking about sports and entertainment, and I go off on any topic. I don't care whatever you want to talk about. We're just here having fun. We're start here E-Mix Radio Monday nights 8:00. Make sure you keep tuning in. But going back to as far as money, chasing the money, a lot of the professional athletes, a lot of people say, the contracts, the kind of money these guys are making are just ridiculous, and as a result, and I don't care what sport you're talking about, but I think predominantly, I don't know enough about, soccer salaries, but I know that in the American sports, the salaries are just getting ridiculous. Ticket prices are going up. I was at the Dodger game this weekend. I took the wife and kids, and it costs $12, $13 for a little beer. The $6 for a hot dog, and
That's ridiculous.
The salaries and stuff are getting outrageous, but the demand is there. It seems as though the fanatics, the nuts out there are willing to pay. Do you think that these athletes are being overpaid, or is there definitely value to the entertainment? We said we're talking today about sports and entertainment. Is there kind of no price tag on entertainment?
That is a tough one, man, because, at what point does society say enough? You know what I mean? Like, I think that there should be a price cap on sports and entertainment as well. But it's not going to happen until society says, like, okay, I'm not going to pay that kind of money. It's kind of like the whole Disneyland, theory.
Right.
Like, if they want it, we're going to charge more. And,
right.
At what point are tickets going to be for Disneyland? At where tickets are going to be $200 and people are still going to be showing up.
Yeah,
and it's still
they
gonna be
absolutely will. But part of that going to that, I think, and that's I think is a different aspect as far as economical things than when you're talking about sports. I know my sister works at Disneyland, and I've had annual passes before, and I've taken my wife and kids, and I can tell you this last year we had annual passes that just expired not long ago, to me, it was obviously different than other years that we had annual passes, in that I felt it was more crowded more often. And I think that's part of the reason, and I think I've heard that, is that the reason why they're raising ticket prices is to try to make it where fewer people are going, so that the people that do go can enjoy the park instead of just maybe getting on 2 or 3 rides because it's 2.5 hours for every line. I understand, part of that mentality. But
no, and I agree with that. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't raise the prices. They should raise the prices.
Right.
But what I'm trying to get at is, at what point do people say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm just not going to go anymore.
Right.
The same for sports. When I wanted to go to a game. No, I went to a game. It was a Galaxy game. And I got in, and I paid $20 per ticket because of my cousin that I told you about, the whole LA Riot Squad.
Right.
He had cheaper tickets.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was trying to fill seats or something to that effect. But I looked at the regular prices, and regular price for a game was like $60.
Wow.
For soccer.
Right.
In the U.S.
Hey, don't put it down. Don't put down soccer.
I was like, no. And I couldn't believe it, and the stadium was packed.
Mm-hmm.
The stadium was packed, and it just it gets to me because big companies only go as far as people let them go.
Right.
If they obviously saw that nobody was showing up, then they would lower their prices.
Right.
Same thing for paying the players. If people weren't showing up to the games, then companies would have to lower what they pay the players.
Uh-huh.
But I don't see that happening, and especially our world keeps getting more and more overpopulated, so people need to be entertained.
Right. Yeah, I think that definitely sports is definitely in entertainment. It's a way, I think, of distracting us from, what's really going on in life. And I catch myself sometimes too. I love sports. Because I played it as a kid. I grew up playing sports, and because I've played, I have a competitive nature. I enjoy watching it. I was at my parents' house yesterday, watching the Kings. And I'm not, I'm a Kings fan, LA guy, all the LA teams, maybe except for the Clippers. And don't get it twisted, the Angels are not LA. But
But they're Los Angeles Angels.
But they're in Anaheim. They're in Orange County. Maybe we could get on that topic another day. But I'm at my parents watching the Kings game, and I know the players and I know the game. I don't follow it much during the regular season because it's not, it's on special channels and stuff. But I was just going nuts. I mean, I'm jumping up, I'm yelling, I'm screaming because, I mean, it was a fantastic game. Going back to the thing I was talking about is that level of play is just absolutely escalated in the playoffs, and the Kings really rose to the occasion. I don't know if you follow much of the hockey playoffs.
I don't.
But so this is the third round of the playoffs, and so this is the third round in a row the Kings went to a Game 7. In the first series, they played the San Jose Sharks. They were down 0-3 or 3-0, however you want to look at it. Anyways, they lost the first 3 games. They came back and won 4 in a row. They played the Ducks in the second round. Got you, Anaheim. They came back. They were up 2-0, down 3-2, and then they came back and won in Game 7. And last night they won not only in Game 7, but it was an overtime goal, and it was just the entertainment value was absolutely there because I think even if you're a modest fan, if you were to watch that game, I mean, it's gut-wrenching, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. It's everything I think that we like about entertainment. It's like watching a good movie, except for this is real life. This is the reality TV, and I enjoy everything about that.
Yeah. Oh, especially for hockey, man. I think there's like boxing matches going on in there.
Right. Well, they really got away from that too. I know that was a big thing. Again, I don't follow much of the regular season, but I know that's one of the things they were commenting on is that they're really trying to get away from the fighting. They want to get away from that aspect. I mean, yeah, the guys fight, but I mean, there's like major penalties and consequences for the fighting now.
Yeah.
I know the old cliche. It was kind of a funny joke. Is like I went to a fight last night. I went to watch a fight last night, and a hockey game broke out. It was kind of one of the old sayings, but and there's a lot of exciting sports going on right now. The one thing I am sad about though is that the Lakers are nothing to be talked about. The Dodgers are, I mean, even though they're just barely over 500, they're an exciting team to watch between Yasiel Puig and all the stars that they have. Hanley Ramirez, Adrian Gonzalez, they're all playing really good right now. The Kings are in the playoffs. We got World Cup going on, but the Lakers are nowhere to be found. Are you a Laker fan? I mean,
I'm a major Laker fan.
All right, that's what I thought. I didn't want to speak for you. I was pretty sure I couldn't remember exactly, but I know you definitely weren't a Clipper fan.
Yeah, no, I'm not a Clipper fan.
You're not Clipper Daryl.
No. No, I'm a major Laker fan, man, and it was sad. It was a very sad thing. I think this was like the first time in however many years that they don't get anywhere.
Right.
It was a sad thing to watch, man. It was especially sad to see Kobe not playing.
It was the worst record in the history of the Lakers. Worst record ever.
Right.
Why did it have to be in my lifetime?
And when you see the players, that's another thing we could get into. Actually, this could be a whole other hour. But when you see the Lakers and what they did with the coach, it's like at what point did you have to how far did you have to let it go to fire the coach? How far did you have to let it go? And I think results showed for themselves.
Yeah, but a lot of it too. I mean, you had to cut the guy a little bit of slack. I mean, they had more injuries than maybe any other team, at least to the major stars. I mean, Pau Gasol got vertigo, not once but twice during the season. I mean, who gets vertigo? Let alone twice in the regular season. Matter of fact, I was listening to. I know Fred Rogan on Channel 4 Sports actually said he had vertigo before. It's one of the worst things he said ever happened to him in his life, and I couldn't imagine that. Kobe got hurt. He was out, tried to come back, got hurt again. And they broke down, some of the team. They let go of some of the players go. They let go of Lamar Odom. They let go to Derek Fisher. I mean, some of these guys were definitely aging. I think they had to make some moves. And I don't agree with the D'Antoni hire. I didn't think it was a good hire. I thought Mike Brown was a bad hire. I didn't like the D'Antoni hire.
And Phil Jackson tried coming back, man.
Well, he was gonna come back. I know that was the thing. I mean, I don't think anybody really know the true story about what really happened there. But yeah, I mean, he was on his way back.
He was on his way back, and they said no to him. And it's just like, dude, it's the Lakers. You're making bank. That the owners of the Lakers I know for a fact are making so much money.
Right.
And to do that to the fans, because they're not doing it to the players. The players are already made. The players already have their money.
Right.
They're doing it to the fans. To do that to the fans, it's kind of like spitting in their face.
Well, sometimes it's it's a decision, and they may have just made a bad decision.
Two bad
You never know what's going to happen. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe if Steve Nash was healthy, I mean, he's definitely not the Steve Nash of old. I mean, no player is going to be that good when they get toward. I mean, they're not going to be as good. Steve Nash is definitely post prime, but maybe they thought that bringing D'Antoni in would maybe reignite him, and But then again, I think about, well, look at the Suns. I mean, they never won a championship with D'Antoni and Nash, so. I didn't really understand the whole mentality of bringing him back, and Kobe is not accustomed to that fast-paced sort of play, and whether he's the two guard or the point guard, he's going to control the ball. He's basically going to bring it down the court probably 75% of the time versus a point guard who should be doing that like a Russell Westbrook or a Tony Parker. Those guys are some of the truer point guards I think in the league.
And you know what? Talking about Kobe, you just mentioned something. That's where that confidence we were talking about earlier. That's where I understand it in the game.
Yeah,
he keeps the ball, but he makes things happen.
Right.
Hey, keep the ball, man. Continue. Do what you do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sorry, I just had to make that
No,
comment.
I got you. Now, what do you think? We're on the topic of Lakers, and if we get any comments on this, I'd love to hear what people think about it. But I mean, there's two big names that are out there that people think the Lakers are at least have a chance to get. Some people say it's delusional. Some people say, hey, there is a chance. But, LeBron's going to be a free agent soon, and Carmelo's going to be a free agent. Do you think there's a chance the Lakers get either one of those guys? And even if they do you think they're a good fit that they could play with Kobe, either one of them?
That's a tough one, man, because, they say Kobe's hard to play with.
Right.
So, and especially having two very individualistic players added to another individualistic player. That's a very tough match. I'm not sure that it would be a good fit.
Right.
Because the way the Lakers are structured, it's kind of around Kobe.
Oh, absolutely. There's you can't deny that.
So bringing in two players that would want the attention for themselves, it would be hard to tell them or hard to instruct them to, hey, you know what? This is a Kobe team.
Right.
Not that I agree with that completely. It's not, obviously, it's good to be a team player. But once again, like I was saying, if the guy's bringing results, you just give him the ball.
Right.
So that's a tough.
But I think one of the things I think, although I don't think the move will ever happen, but I think LeBron in Miami has shown that he definitely can disperse the ball. I mean, he's up there in the top of the league in assists. And when I know they've been trying to conserve Dwayne Wade because they're saying his body's breaking down a little bit, and when he needs to take over a game, he can. But when he needs to disperse the ball, I mean, he has no problem getting assists. That's for sure. But again, going back to the Kobe thing, I think it definitely takes a certain type of premier player that could play alongside him. Because I mean, let's face it, Pau Gasol was a monster when he was playing in Memphis. He was a huge player. He was pretty much the stud on that team. Then he comes to LA, and I think he did kind of play second fiddle to Kobe Bryant, but he was okay doing that. And look what they did. I mean, they won two championships together. Yep. And they went to three finals for sure. They lost the first one to Boston, but then they won a couple against the Magic and then Boston again. But it's tough. And now D'Antoni's gone. Any thoughts on who would be a good fit for a head coach? I mean, because that's really what I think their next move is. Well, I don't know if they're going to do it before the draft or not, but any thoughts on who you like as head coach?
Man, that's a tough one. Phil Jackson's out of the question already. So.
Oh yeah, he's he's out of the picture.
Yeah, no, man. I have I've put some thought into that, and I really don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, I think it would be tough. I think it depends on what they're going to do in the draft. That'll definitely be a big indicator. But big name I like I haven't heard a lot of people talk about anyways is George Karl. Used to be the coach for the Denver Nuggets. I wouldn't want to see Carmelo come to LA with him. I mean, I got a buddy of mine who's a big Melo fan, but I think he's a black hole. I mean, he's absolutely one of the most ridiculous, purest shooters in the game. His talent is off the charts, but you give him the ball, you're not getting it back. The same thing kind of could be said for Kobe, but you know what? Kobe's got 5 rings.
Yeah, man. That's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, and I agree with you with the whole Carmelo thing, and that would be a tough lineup. One of them will have to kind of put themselves down.
Right.
And Kobe's not going to do that.
Right.
He's definitely not going to do that, especially coming back.
Yeah.
You know, he was injured like for 2 seasons, and
Uh-huh.
once he comes back, he's gonna just want to take over completely.
Right.
So I don't see Carmelo.
He's got to get that Jordan number. He's got to get that 6 at least. I know he at least wants to tie him. At least.
Yeah, even Jordan himself said it. You know, like if there's a player right now in the NBA that can match Jordan or even beat Jordan, you know, he said it himself. Like that's Kobe.
Right.
You know, so
I think LeBron's getting there, though. You know, I would definitely have been a LeBron detractor for a long time, but you can't deny his athleticism. I just think the guy's a freak. He's just absolutely phenomenal. Matter of fact, I'd be interested to see. I know he played football in high school. I mean, I would really be curious to see what he would have done in the NFL. I mean, I think he would have been, probably maybe not maybe a wide receiver. Could have been a premier tight end. I mean, you know, who knows? That's
he's gonna bust a Michael Jordan, man.
Yeah, who knows?
Michael Jordan. He played baseball, football, and basketball, right? He tried something else.
I don't know if he tried football, but I know obviously he did the baseball thing. And I was watching a documentary about that. ESPN did a 30 for 30. It was called Jordan Rides the Bus, I think, or something like Mike Rides the Bus, something like that. Because in the minor league baseballs, they don't travel on the planes. They take the bus from city to city because they're on smaller budgets. And a lot of people thought it was a joke when he started, coming out for baseball. But what a lot of the people were saying in this documentary was that he actually had really good fundamentals. Obviously, he had played baseball as a younger kid, and then basketball was obviously probably the better choice for him. But a lot of people said that if he had a couple of seasons, he may have had a chance to make it, in Major League Baseball. He probably wouldn't. He said he wouldn't have been a star like he was in the NBA, but he might have been able to make a Major League roster. So I mean, when you have that kind of raw athleticism, I think it translates to everything you do.
Yeah, and I was kind of upset that so many people judged him for that. It's like, hey, if I had that much money and if I had that much power, I would try to do everything that I can. I would go at, especially, I'm an athlete. Well, I was an athlete. And, I used, back in high school, back in middle school, I used to play, football, soccer, basketball, and I was good at all of them. Mm-hmm. So if I made it to the top, I would go for it, man.
Right.
How about yourself?
Baseball was my thing. I played baseball as a kid all growing up. I never really got into, I played pickup basketball at school. That was pretty much the only sport you really play. I mean, was never big on tetherball. Wasn't gonna be a professional tetherball player, but I love baseball. But and then we played football at the park. No pads, just tackling the crap out of some guy, hurting your shoulder or this and that. So I mean, I love sports, but I think if I had that kind of freakish, raw athletic ability, I mean, I would look at playing 2 sports. I mean, Deion Sanders, Bo Jackson. I don't think the way sports are now, I don't think we'll ever see another player like that again across a 2-sport player like that. It's just everybody is so concerned with protecting themselves and making sure they don't get injured. They got to make that paycheck. They got to earn their paycheck for the entertainment value. I don't think we'll ever see another a 2-sport player like that again, which I think is sad. And I would have loved to have seen what Bo Jackson could have been. I mean, the guy was a freak, and he had a unfortunate injury that ended his career, and before he could really see what he could have really done. I mean, he may have been. I think he's probably one of the greatest athletes of all time. I mean, to be able to play 2 sports like that and to be able to be so well and compete at such a high level like that, it was just amazing.
Talking about injuries, man, I don't know if you caught this, but did you by any chance see the Mexico game?
I did not.
Did not? El Chepo, which is one of the players, he broke his ankle, man.
Get out of here.
Yeah. He was
not like a figure of speech, like a basketball talk about, they broke his ankle. He literally broke his ankle.
He literally broke his ankle. He was running for the ball, and then, the other player for Ecuador, he slid, and he was gonna do a tackle.
Right.
And then the Mexican player Chepo, he tried forcing the tackle, so he kicked with all his force, and his ankle just broke. And
Oh, my
you
gosh.
could see it, and it was like hanging. And
Wow.
it was on TV. I was very gruesome. But yeah, I just thought about that.
Well, let me on that subject. This is one of the things, and I think for me as an American fan of soccer, one of the things that I don't like about it, one of the things that really I don't like about soccer, one of the things that turns me off is the flopping. I mean, the flopping is just absolutely ridiculous. So I thought about that because I know, it came on today. We were talking, okay, what are we going to talk about? And you said, well, how about World Cup? And I said, I'm always down for sports. I don't care what it is. I'll talk a little cup. And I thought, man, I've told people this before. It's one of the things I can't stand about soccer is just the ridiculous crying, acting out. Oh, I'm so hurt. But then I thought about it too. Same thing in basketball. Absolutely, there's just flops like that, and I know they've talked about getting away from that. But in football too, that's a thing that's been talked about a lot. Is that guys are faking injuries to if you've got Peyton Manning going down the field in a no rush offense and he's moving quick and you want to slow him down, somebody's going to fake an injury and lay out on the field to give the defense a break because they're getting winded. And even in baseball too, what do you think about flopping? In different senses of sport, do you think that it's part of the sport, that it's okay, or you think that it's bogus? And what are your thoughts?
Well, as a sports guy, as an athletic guy, I think it's bogus. As a logical guy, I think it's part of the sport and it makes sense. It was funny. There was a meme on Facebook and it had a soccer player, flopping and faking an injury, and then they had a hockey player with bloody teeth. Like, that was a no foul.
Right.
And, it's true. I enjoy, when I think of myself as an athlete, I enjoy hey, I'm going to give it my all.
Right.
And that's why I love Germany. The Germany soccer team, oh my God. Like, there's no fouls for Germany. Like,
Really?
they just get up and keep playing.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's amazing to watch. But then when you think of the logical standpoint, it's like, hey, if you could make some time or get somebody red carded, well then then you're playing logically.
Right. There's definitely a strategy to it. I understand that. I think, like you said, I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. But yeah, just sometimes when it's so obvious, I think it's kind of crazy. I just feel, man, and maybe I'm more critical because I'm not a big fan of soccer. But that's one of the things that I definitely saw that I've seen it in cups in the past. But I mean, these guys definitely get ridiculously injured too.
Right. Well, it looks like we are actually out of time. This was Emix Radio. Catch us every single Monday at 8 p.m.
E-Mix Radio.
We will be here next Monday.
Catch you later.